Welcome to Lecture 7, Part 2, where we're moving on to audition. In other words, hearing. The structure of the ear. The anatomy of the ear is described in terms of three regions: the outer ear, the middle ear, and the inner ear. The outer ear, or the pinna, that's this thing out here, it's the structure of flesh and cartilage attached to the side of the head, and the auditory canal. The pinna helps us locate the source of a sound by altering reflections of sound waves. The middle ear, right into here, is comprised of the tympanic membrane, that's the eardrum, which vibrates at the same frequency as the sound waves that strike it. Sound waves reach the tympanic membrane through the auditory canal, and the tympanic membrane is attached to three tiny bones: the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup. The inner ear, beginning right through here, all this in here is the inner ear. The inner ear consists of the oval window, which receives vibrations from the tiny bones in the middle ear, and the cochlea, which contains three fluid-filled tunnels. The stirrup causes the oval window to vibrate, setting in motion all the fluid in the cochlea. The auditory receptors, there's little hair cells, lie between there's a membrane in there, lying between the membrane and the cochlea. So there's all in here. See, right in here, this cochlea. There's tiny cells and membranes in here that's all filled with fluid. When the fluid and the cochlea vibrate, a shearing action occurs which stimulates the hair cells. These cells then stimulate the auditory nerve, also known as the eighth cranial nerve. So the sound comes in, vibrates this, moves these little bones around, which shakes that little oval window, which sends vibrations through the cochlea, which sends nerve impulses down that auditory nerve. The auditory cortex is auditory information passes through several subcortical structures with an important crossover in the midbrain that enables each hemisphere of the forebrain to get its major auditory input from the opposite ear. The primary auditory cortex is the ultimate destination for auditory information, is located in the superior temporal cortex. The primary auditory cortex is also important for auditory imagery. Similar to the visual system, the auditory system needs experience to develop normally. Both constant noise and the lack of exposure to sound will impair the development of the auditory system. Damage to the primary auditory cortex leads to deficits in processing auditory information, not to a hearing loss. When we look at hearing loss, we're going to look at three different types. There is conductive or middle ear deafness. This is the failure of the bones in the middle ear to transmit sound waves properly to the cochlea. Conductive deafness can be caused by diseases, infection, or tumorous bone growth near the ear. This deafness can usually be corrected by surgery or hearing aids. Another type of hearing loss is nerve or inner ear deafness. Damage to the cochlea, hair cells, or auditory nerve that causes permanent impairment in hearing in one or all ranges of frequencies. Nerve deafness can be inherited or caused by prenatal problems and early childhood disorders. And the third type is tinnitus. Tinnitus is frequent or constant ringing in the ear. Tinnitus is common in people with nerve deafness and is due in some cases to a phenomena similar to phantom limb. When we move on to mechanical senses, the mechanical senses include touch, pain, and other body sensations as well as vestibular sensation. The vestibular sensation is the sensation about where our body is, how our body's moving, what position it is. The vestibular organ monitors head movements and directs, it compensates our movements of the eyes. So the semicircular canals up here are for our vestibular sensation. The three semicircular canals are filled with this jelly-like substance and are lined with hair cells. Acceleration of the head causes the substance to push against hair cells, which in turn causes action potentials from this vestibular system to travel through part of the 8th cranial nerve into the brainstem and cerebellum. Somatosensation is the sensation system involves the sensations of the body and its movements, including discriminative touch, deep pressure, cold, warmth, pain, itch, tickle, and the position and movements of joints. This input to the central nervous system from the somatosensory information from the head enters our central nervous system through the cranial nerves. Information from touch receptors below the head enter through the spinal cord. Each spinal nerve has a sensory component and a motor component. Pain. Don't you just love pain? The experience invoked by a harmful stimulus directing our attention toward danger. And here we have this picture of illustration of nerve pain cells. Pain stimulus and pain pathways. Receptors are these bare nerve endings, some of which also respond to an acid sensation or heat. Capsaicin, a chemical found in hot peppers, like jalapenos, also stimulate pain receptors. Pain is conveyed slowly over unmyelinated axons. Mild pain causes the release of neurotransmitters, glutamate, in the spinal cord, whereas strong pain causes the release of both glutamate and something called substance P. Pain information also ascends to the medulla, where it projects to the limbic system to generate an emotional response and also memories. There are several ways of relieving pain. Let's start out with opioids and endorphins. What these do is they bind to receptors in the spinal cord and the gray area in our brain to block the release of substance P and decreases prolonged pain. A placebo is a drug that has no pharmacological effects, yet it also reduces the perception of pain. Cannabinoids are drugs that act in the periphery system, so in the nerves from your spinal out to your limbs to block some types of pain. Electrical stimulation of the nervous system is the stimulation of pain pathways in the spinal cord or the thalamus can actually disrupt pain, presumably by interrupting the continuous stimulus of the pain responders. The body also has mechanisms to increase pain after tissue has been damaged and inflamed. Pain sensation is a result of the body releasing histamine, nerve growth factor, and other chemicals that are necessary to repair the body. Non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs decrease pain by reducing the release of these chemicals from the damaged tissues. We're going to go on to our other senses in our next lecture.